I am Allison Lane. Welcome to the Creative Nonfiction Community highlight of the year, the graduation party for the books published and available for sale in 2022. Hello and welcome. This is so exciting, you guys. This group started with 6 people 2 years ago, maybe 2.5. And now we are 1,300 engaged writers doing our thing, writing fiction, writing poetry, writing kids' books, writing essays, writing freelance and getting paid for it, writing for the Washington Post and Newsweek and every place you could think of. We've got sports expert, memoirists. We are writing the stories and the immersive experiences that people need in the world. And I am so honored to make this happen, to kind of pull people together. It is so much fun to celebrate all of you. And thank you for being here. Today, we are celebrating these books that are for sale for the first time in this year. Congratulations. And we are going to hear from every one of the authors who submitted their information, who had a book published and available for sale this year. Now, if you submitted your book and your book is not already for sale or was for sale in published in previous years, tonight is not your night, but it will be soon. We are going to promote every last one of you. We are going to ask you to share your information, share your advice, because if we don't promote ourselves and our community members, how can we expect anyone to know? This network reaches so many people, and we are peers and supporting each other. So here's how this is going to work. We are going to go fast and furious. This is like speed dating, but even speedier. We are going to hear from 16 authors whose books are for sale right now. Every time I introduce one, they are going to take themselves off of mute. I will spotlight them so you can see them. And if you want to ask any questions, drop it in the chat. And if you don't get your question answered, we will see it and we will make sure it gets answered. And you can also drop it in the Creative Nonfiction Community discussion thread. Also, you can invite anybody to this group, even if they're not published, because everyone starts somewhere. And if you have a pencil and a piece of paper, you are a writer, period. So here's how we're going to start. Miss Stephanie Weaver. What? This thing. Tell us about your book and your advice.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Weaver. I'm based in Oceanside, California. This is my 4th book, the Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook. It has 100 anti-inflammatory recipes for people with migraine, headaches, vertigo, and anybody who needs to eat anti-inflammatory. And it also includes 30 quotes on resilience. My tips are that I worked really hard to make really genuine connections within the community that would be interested in this book. So bloggers, advocates, doctors, and they got invested in the success of the book. I did 55 Resilience Series interviews. 30 of those are reflected in the book, but all those people, Buick did one of them, Buick was here. And it was just a wonderful way to have conversation and a sort of light, gentle way to promote my book well before it came out. Some of those organizations, I was very strategic, and they have mailing lists of over 10,000 people. And so then they put out recipes and announcements and things when the book came out. And that was obviously very helpful because I reached way more people than I was able to reach with my platform. And I also think it's really important, like Allison is, to be a good literary citizen. So I started the book, the group New in 22. Many of you are in that. as a way for authors publishing this year to get to know each other, to help each other, to answer questions, to brainstorm. And it's been such a great community that it's actually continuing on into 23 with 3 new moderators. So super excited about that. And I hope to stay in that group and eventually have news about my memoir that hopefully I'll be selling at some point. So that's me. Thanks, Allison.
So good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Moving like the wind. Candace Cahill, you are now coming on the spotlight, my friend.
All right, I'm ready. I am a debut author. My book will be out next month, so it is available for pre-order now. My book is about losing my son twice, the first time to adoption, the second time 23 years later when he died in his sleep. So it's a book that talks about child relinquishment and child loss, about the definition of motherhood and how 2 things can be true at one time. My tips are, as someone who came into this with no background in writing, first of all, find yourself a writer's group that you can both be accountable to and will help you stay on a timeline. They will also help you learn from your mistakes, but you'll learn from their mistakes too, and you'll be able to celebrate their successes. Enlist advice from other writers and from people in the business, but follow your own compass. Perfection is unattainable, but the quest for excellence is both worthwhile and fulfilling. And last but not least, you know more than you think you do. And whatever you don't know, you can learn.
That was 90 seconds. That was amazing. I want to point out too that Candace, congratulations. Candace workshopped her book in this group. She came to every compassionate critique session. She asked for feedback on queries, on her overview, her proposal elements, even her subtitle and her cover. This is how this group can help you. It's free, and there are people who self-publish, hybrid publish, traditionally publish. You can do all of this here or not. I mean, there are also resources and editors, and it's amazing. So thank you, Candace. And Candace is one of the 2 moderators we have in the group, and the other is Mona Mijas. All right, next up, Krista Bennett, where are you? All right, tell us about your book.
Okay, so I have a book available for pre-order. I don't have a hard copy with me, but it's called For the Love of Seafood, 100 Flawless and Flavorful Recipes Anyone Can Cook. This is my second book. My first book pubbed in 2020, and that was, although writing the book was a fabulous experience, the publication was horrific. It was in the middle of COVID. So I felt like it got lost in the dust of COVID. But this new book, I feel really great about. Definitely second book. I learned from the first, so the second one, I definitely was able to take all of those things that I learned and apply them to the second book. And it's available for pre-order via my website. Things that I've learned, I agree with everybody that I've heard so far. Don't give up. Just don't give up. I have wanted to write a book for so long. Didn't think I was a writer material. I'm a chef by trade, and I thought, I can't write a book. I cook. But I met an author, and she was so wonderful about giving me information and tips and encouraging me to continue. And you're never too old. I actually thought I was too old. Isn't that weird? I was like, I would think I was 45 at the time, and I thought, oh, I'm too old to author a book. And I don't know why that was in my mind, but it's been a great experience, and I'm hooked. I love writing. And now, I've joined this group because I really want to write a memoir, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that leap from culinary to memoir. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Allison.
This is so exciting. Congratulations. And
Thanks.
I'm sure a lot of people are saying, how was it horrific? Don't tell us now. We'll cover that later
Okay.
on
Okay.
another day.
Okay.
But gosh, congratulations. And I remember
Thanks.
your memoir and I can't wait to
Oh,
hear more about it.
yes.
All right, next up, Buick Audra.
Hey everyone.
Tell us about your book.
My name is Buick Audra. I'm a musician living in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a debut author. My book is called Conversations with My Other Voice, Essays. It is a memoir and essays about my relationship with my voice, literal and figurative. And this is actually a companion work to an album called Conversations with My Other Voice, which is a memoir and songs. They were released on the same day. So my intention was to create works that could be consumed in tandem so that the music and the prose would give you a look into the life of a woman in music. And highlights include very wild family dynamics, Grammy Awards, mine, incarceration, not mine, and making records all over the place. My advice is really about the writing process itself. I am a grateful member of this writing community, and I have attended, and this is my first time publishing a book, and I have attended so many writing workshops and classes and webinars. And I wrote everything down and took very, detailed notes. But my advice is listen to what everyone else has to say. But when it's time to write, turn your own voice way, way up. And then also when reading and editing the work, I read my work aloud about 70 times. I read my book in my own voice 70 times so that the writing voice would mirror what I sound like when I speak. It was important for that to come through.
Great tip.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next up, Debbie Lewis, where are you?
Hello. My memoir, Kitchen Medicine, is the story of how I fell in love with food. Not in spite of, but because of my daughter's childhood challenges with eating. So it's about food and parenting medically complex children, and it does have both Brussels sprouts and Oreos. So not a healthy cooking book necessarily, but all things are healthy. So my advice is to recognize that if, like me, this is your first book, you will look back and potentially regret some of the decisions you made, and that's okay. It's all a learning experience. There are things I wish I'd fought harder for, like my title, and things I spent a lot of time, way too long, thinking about, like getting into bookstores. More on that in a minute. And in the end, I'm still really proud that my work to build a platform by getting a lot of good bylines before I started querying agents paid off. I was successful. My agent did eventually sell my book. And a lot of the things that didn't go as well as we both hoped can be chalked up to the pandemic, unfortunately, like a lot of us in the last few years outside of our control. But a note on bookstores and bookshop.org, unfortunately. Something that I didn't know is that if your publisher doesn't offer enough of a discount to local bookstores, asking people to order your book locally actually hurts the bookstore, because after shipping, they lose money. And as much as I hate to do it, I've chosen to push Amazon purchases instead, which was a real surprise to me. I spent a lot of time trying to get into bookstores, not understanding why they weren't carrying it. The best decisions I made in the end were to agree to a lot of podcasts. Those were really, really good ways to sell books, and getting collateral pieces published in big splashy publications, which this community is great at helping us find. So that's it. That's me.
That is freaking fascinating. I already have questions. We don't have time for me to ask them, but I will find you again and we'll figure it out. All right. Next up is Lisa Selye.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Selke. My book is Narrow Girls on a Blue Profound Stage. It's a mouthful of a title. This book is a memoir, coming of age on the 1980s Southern California ballet stages while coming to terms with queer identity. Back then, that was not really something we did as women. The ballet world is known for queer identity among men, but not so much among women in the 1980s. And I hope that this resonates in this day and age. It was my MFA nonfiction thesis. And the professors there wanted me to publish it. And so it didn't take me long to find a publisher, which comes to my advice. I love duotrope.com. That's duotrope.com. That is how I found a good match. You can research publishers. You can figure out what those editors are looking for. You can also find an agent there. I recommend writing and publishing shorter pieces, whether it's essays, poetry, blogs, anything that can be published in a periodical. It doesn't have to be super well known, but get your name inside of other publications so that when you're writing your query letter, you can list those publications. And that also comes in handy when you are researching, because on Duotrope, you can find out which publications are respected by a particular author. And if your name is in one of those publications, you know that's a pretty good match. And when you write your query letter and you list that, that publication will be recognized by that editor. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much for that. And I also want to point out that Lisa had shared a lot of tips earlier this year about book titles. And we remember, Lisa, where I was in a parking lot and you were in a parking lot, and I was like, give me your tips because you couldn't attend. And so if you did not see that webinar, it is available for free on YouTube, how to choose a fantastic book title and what the trends are and what not to do.
Can I also say that what this group did for me also was give me a forum and lots of people to talk to. And Allison hooked me up with the Nonfiction Authors Association, and that turned into a really great interview that was fantastic for publication. So you just never know where this group's going to lead you. That's my plug for you, Allison.
Thank you. I'm so glad that that worked out. I mean, this says I'm muted, but I don't think I am anymore. That's the thing. I am a 25-year marketer and publicist. So if you're not asking questions about how to market your book or yourself, or or find a place to pitch in this group, you are missing out, because it's not just me. Everyone's doing it, but I also am a pro. And then I jump ship, and now I support authors who have something really important to share with the world, and I'm happy to do it. Okay, I am now looking for James. James, what is your book about?
Hi, I'm James Treddick, lifelong baseball fan, former employee of the Nationals, and first-time author. I wrote Game 7 Lightning in a Bottle with Jimmy, my 11-year-old inner child, and you have to read the book to find out how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
On September 30th, 1971, I was there for the last game of the last, when my Washington Senators left before they left town. I thought baseball was gone forever. But our national pastime eventually returned to DC, and I actually got paid to watch baseball. This book is part game recap, part creative nonfiction, and it's about a kid at heart and an underestimated broken finger batting, crotch shuffling, dugout dancing, back to back homering, baby shark singing, pink sunglasses wearing, foul pole clanging team that was just plain magical. It's also about resilience and hope and miraculous comebacks. As the Nationals proved once in a generation, the underdogs can come out on top. I hope my first book will thrill baseball fans and fans of a fun story as they share my experience of this improbable championship series. And my advice is to organize your thoughts and your chapters before you get started, because I started writing another book before this, and I wrote this piece, and I wrote that piece, and I wrote this piece, and then now I'm trying to piece them together, and that got harder. So if you just start in the beginning and write straight through, which is hard for a big chunker guy like me, I think that's going to work out best. Listen to your encouragers. My paramour is my, greatest asset, my best editor, and couldn't have done it without her.
That is awesome for sure.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, Megan Hanlon, there we go. What is your book about?
Hi, thank you. I was a contributor this year in two beautiful anthology books. One is called The Order of Us, and the second is The History of Us. And The Order of Us is about, it's a collection of stories from stories and poetry from women about how they overcame struggle to find the beauty in chaos. And in that book, I have an essay called Exploding into Parenthood. And then in The History of Us is another collection of stories and essays from women about the women who came before and shaped us for better or for worse. I have two essays in that one. One is titled Women Like Water, and the other one is The Hand That's Not Yours. My advice is that publishing will be terrifying. Especially for people that write memoirs, personal essays, personal narratives. It's not just a story, it's your story. And that is absolutely terrifying to put it out in front of your neighbors, your parents, your friends, your spouse, and strangers. And I think that you should do it anyway, because the world needs these stories. And if you fight through that terror and that fear, then more than likely you will get good feedback and find out that somebody out there needed your story.
Thank you so much for saying that. This is really important. People don't realize that your story has merit. Everyone's story has merit. And the shit we don't talk about drives me crazy. So whatever it is that you have going on that you think I could never reveal, someone out there needs that. They need to know that they're not the only one that wants $1 zillion or wants to live in a cave or had experienced something awful or something life-changing. And if you shrug it off and no one wants to hear that, or no one wants my advice, yes, they do. They really do. And even you memoirists who think, this is my story, people don't really want access to me because I'm always preaching, you need a website, you need a website, and make sure you give people an open door that they can engage with you, not just send you an email, because that's a one-way ticket to not getting an email. They do want access to you. They do want to engage you. So open that door and welcome it, because we're all building connection. And write whatever you want to write, and know that even memoirists have advice to give about writing, even your favorite books. All that stuff can go in your website. And in November, we're going to talk a lot more about how to invite and engage fans and participants and readers. So stay tuned for that. But Megan, I think that was so important. And we don't say that enough, because
Absolutely.
Everyone who comes into this group says, I'm not really sure. I haven't shown this to anyone. Like, you can show it to us for sure. And I am certain that there are people who have in this group who have experienced something like you have, but we don't wear that on our sleeves. Just assume. I mean, P.S., my father murdered someone. This is not stuff that I share lightly. I'm saying you don't know that unless I tell you. And the shit we don't talk about drives me crazy. So the gun violence in my family is batshit crazy, but we don't talk about it. We need to. So Megan, thank you again.
Sure.
I went off script, but damn, people, Megan, I didn't mean to interrupt you, please.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add that the ability for somebody to read something and say, oh my God, me too, is so powerful, and it's healing and it connects people. And that was why I started writing, is because I read things by writers in high school, and I went, oh my gosh, me too. There's somebody else out there that has been through this and survived. And so that was how I started it. And I think that if I can do that for one person, if anybody here can do that for one person, then you've done your job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Now we are moving to Janice Earhart.
Well, I am publishing my first book this fall. It's coming out in November. It's called Mother of My Invention, a Motherless Daughter Memoir. So I am a memoirist, and the book is about being motherless, but learning what it means to be a woman and a mother without having had one, and learning to be a decent human being after first losing my mother to schizophrenia when I was an infant, and then to death when I was 13. So not having a mother at all it's difficult to describe the vacuum that creates. And my advice is to take the time that you need to gain perspective, especially for memoir and personal essay. That's what I write. And I think it's just so important to let your readers know what you learned from life. The book that you write is not about what happens to you. It's about what you learned and how that changed you. And other people may benefit from what you learned. It's a lot of what Megan just said and what Allison commented on about memoir. We often think that our stories are so odd that no one can connect, but I think there are places where people can connect. But it takes time to find what you have learned from what you've been through. You need to be able to examine all those lessons, the good ones, the bad ones, everything in between. And I know what I'm talking about because it took me 15 years to get a first draft of this memoir. And it's not because I'm a slow writer, but because it took that long to fully realize what it meant to not have a mother, to worry about schizophrenia. Was I going to catch it? Was I going to pass it on to my children? How had all that affected me? And while I was thinking about it, I spent 13 years in the classroom at a school for pregnant and parenting teen girls. And I learned then how to become a teacher, a mentor, and yes, in a way, a mother to my students and their babies. And during that time that I was teaching, I maintained a website called Learning is the Reward, with a tagline of no experience is wasted unless you fail to learn from it. And that could be my life's mantra. I feel like I taught academic subjects to my students, but they taught me more about mothers and daughters than I taught them. So that time was far from wasted. By the time I retired then, I was ready to approach the memoir again with a fresh perspective. And I finished it in less than a year. Thank you, COVID shutdown. Revising took another year and a half, but by this time my attitude had changed completely. I had originally been focused on the negative aspects of being motherless, and it wasn't until I had that time to think about it that I realized that I'd gained so much from all the caring people that were around me and allowing myself to experience life. I could finally put that horrible legacy into perspective and then realize that I was a really fortunate human being, imperfect, but perfectly satisfied with life. So my advice to memoir and personal essay writers is to open yourself to life and really pay attention to what it teaches you, and then share those lessons with your readers. And that's it.
That's emphasize, underline, like definitely get in tune and then share it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, next is someone who couldn't join us tonight, but Gail Weiss-Gaspar had shared some advice. Her book is Carrying My Father's Torch: From Holocaust Trauma to Transformation. It is available now. And what she says is, set up your writing environment and discipline so it works for you, because not one size fits all. And it took her a while to find her way. Hire the best team you can afford to support you in your book, and practice asking for help. Give friends, colleagues, and family a chance to support and cheer for you when your book launches. Thank you, Gail. Next up also is Alicia Pisani, who I don't think she was able to make it. She is traveling. Alicia's book is Emotional Strength Explained, a new way of responding to emotional life, and fun book, like a diary, but more fun. Now, her book is available in Target, and I'm so impressed with that and can't wait to ask her more. But she's at a Girl Scout event right now. Her advice is be authentically you. And she shared a lot more and will, but couldn't be here tonight. Let's go to Margot Weinstein. Yes, tell us about your book.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. My travel memoir, Jalan Jalan, is about my Jalan Jalan, which is an Indonesian word that literally means a path taken in travel, but metaphorically can mean a path taken in life. And as the subtitle says, it's about my journey to satisfy my wanderlust. First through adventure travel when I was young and dumb, and then later in life as an expat in Shanghai and in Bali when I became a mom. My advice is to recognize that your family and friends may love you, but they probably won't be that helpful in writing or marketing your book. They just don't get it. But strangers, often other writers, will surprise you with their generosity. So ask other writers for blurbs, to invite you as guests on their podcast, to join you for presentations, and for advice. Some will say no, but many will say yes. I cannot get my family or friends to even invite me to come to their book clubs, but a stranger, someone whom I asked to do a blurb for my book, which she did, recently invited me to join her to give an author talk at the main branch of the Chicago Public Library in December. So my advice is to reach out and ask other authors for help. And as you learn more, offer help when you're asked. So thank you.
Again, so important. Ask for what you need. No one is going to show up at your house and say, you know what, I need you to come to this. I know you didn't tell me, but can you come and be on stage with me? Ask for what you need and expect some people not to respond. It's fine, but someone's going to say yes, and that is going to snowball into more yeses, and then you're going to be on the yes path. I love it. Thank you, Margot. Rob Kagan.
Hello, you can hear me. So my name's Rob Kagan. My book is Noah's Rejects, and it is a cautionary tale about life on an island paradise. And we all know Martha's Vineyard. It's obviously been in the news lately. And the problem is that everyone has preconceived notions about what it must be like to live on this island year round. But they really don't know how complex it is. It's so hard to live amongst so much beauty and actually so much dysfunction. And this book really looks into life there and why it might be that there is so much dysfunction around in that island. What is it in this fishbowl-like existence that makes it so hard for people to live in this nirvana? Because it isn't easy. It is a struggle for so many people. As far as writing this book, a lot happens on Martha's Vineyard. There's so many stories. This book could have been thousands of pages long. So the stories really flew out of me the first year. But the hardest part about writing a memoir for me, and greatest advice, was like how to string them together so that you have a coherent book that that people actually want to read and like come along with that journey instead of just vignettes. And so the hardest part for me was finding those threads and those themes that you could come back to in each chapter to get people to come along. And what helped me the most was I'm lucky enough now to be in Boston, where we have Grub Street, and there's so many great courses, and it's a great community. And through that, you meet other writers and have a writing group. And what we did is we'd get together weekly and share chapters. We'd share them on Google Drive, and we would comment on each other's chapters, and then we would read them aloud each week. And I think someone else said, like, reading your book aloud, you actually go, oh wow, that doesn't work, and you just so like doing that exercise really helped. And other writers are brutally honest, like, yeah, that's not working. I started out thinking I was like this gonzo journalist kind. I loved like Hunter Thompson and Jimmy Breslin and Joan Didion, and that's where my writing style came from. But it took me a while to find my own style, which was a little different than that. But the other writers helped me along the way. So I'm excited. It's taken off. It's been great. And another person said, like, I would think it was Megan, like, once my book was out there, everyone was saying, wow, you really hit it on the head. Like, no one has really told our story, and it really makes me feel like I'm not alone in this community, kind of thing. So Noah's Rejects. Thank you very much, Allison.
Thank you for sharing. It's sometimes people think, oh, nobody's going to want that, but your representation of this microcosm and representing the issues that we could all do that. That's the thing. So Rob writing about this is exactly what we're talking about. Everyone's story has merit. Rob, I haven't been able to get the book yet, but I can't wait to read it and really dive into whatever dysfunction is there. And the thing is, I'm going to experience that through my dysfunctional childhood, which was not there, but we all have our bags of tricks.
And that was been my conversation with people who've come to see me talk, is like, everyone has a story. Everyone has these interesting lives they lived, and you get so much more out of writing, not just about getting it out there, but you learn so much from your own writing. Right. The decisions you made, and kind of delve into them.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Thank you. Now, Stacy Greason, thank you. Tell us about your book. I feel like
I'm Stacy Greason. I live in Los Angeles, California. My book is All the Girls in Town. I am a screenwriter and a novelist. There she is. And so I've been writing for a long time, and this is my first traditionally published novel after 25 years of writing. So I think my life theme would be never give up. This book is about 3 women who overcome their differences and join forces to wreak vengeance on a rock star's life who ruined their lives. And I love this book. It's been called a love affair to women. And I think women should be seen and heard and believed now more than ever. So my favorite part of this whole experience was my book events, where I got to talk to people about what they thought about the book and have really good conversations that ranged from the internalized male gaze to jealousy and body shaming and comedy and finding comedy in grief and family. And so I learned a lot. It was a very bumpy birth. Birthing this book was super bumpy. And my advice would be to join the Authors Guild to get that kind of support you need, and join a writing community. The best thing that happened to me was joining the Writers Bridge, Binders Building Platforms. Stephanie Weaver, new in 22, and become a good literary citizen yourself. Support every writer that you can. Ask tons of questions. Ask for what you want. Hire a really good publicist. And and just be prepared to work really, really hard. And I guess in the end, just try to plant seeds, not focus on outcomes or comparisons, and really, really try to enjoy the process. So don't give up, enjoy the process.
Okay, so I want to point out, this is the non-creative nonfiction community, and you wrote fiction. Oh no.
Yeah, thanks for
Listen,
letting me hop
people, we write cross-genre. I'm not changing the name of this group now because it's creative, it's nonfiction, it's a community. We are chameleons. If you want to write a haiku, have at. If you're going to write fiction, awesome. If you want to write a fictionalized memoir or a memoir like whatever, write it. This is the group. That's why, and Stacy, emailed like, hey, you realize this is a novel. Yeah, I know you. I know your book. And I want to point out, you don't need permission to write cross genre or in a genre that you've never written in before. Do that and ask for help. Ask Stacy for help. Look, she's here. Hold on, let me do this. She's right there.
I've already read some books in this group too, really good books. Yeah.
Really good books. Really good books.
A few of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy, for being here. I am going to remove you for a second. Listen, I want to point out that there are two people who are also in the, I didn't tell them that I was going to bring them on, but I really, really, really want to. So it's my group. I'm doing it. Listen, one of our founding members has just told me she got a book deal and she sold her book. And I'm telling you, her writing is just buttery goodness and what we need in the world. Rachel Z-Mac, I'm coming for you, girl. And I am going to add you to the spotlight. Rachel,
okay.
We are so happy. So happy for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Tell the group about your book, please.
My book is a memoir slash expose of a problem, a big problem, deaf education. It's a memoir about a career I had teaching deaf children. I'm deaf myself, and I'm using captions to understand all of you. And my captions are saying that I am deaf, not deaf, but deaf. I am not deaf.
Rachel, can you sign while you're talking to us? Would you please sign while you're talking to us?
Yeah, I could sign while I'm talking to you, but
you would prefer
I'd rather not for two reasons. One is it's not politically correct in the deaf world. It's called SIMCOM, and simultaneous communication in two languages, and it's like using Japanese and Spanish at the same time. They're two distinct languages, and so just because you physically can do them both, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing to do, because you're robbing both languages of being as good as they could be. And the victims of this method, SIMCOM, are children in schools, public schools. And it rampantly, the teachers use SIMCOM because they think, well, hard of hearing children can hear English and learn English, and the deaf ones can see the signs. But the deaf community believes that that is robbing, usually the deaf kids, from having access to a full language that's being used alone. So that's
Thank
the
you
political
for
reason.
Yeah, well, thank you for explaining that. I've read so much of your writing and want to point out that your advocacy and light that you are giving all of us access to is so important. I have learned personally so much from you because you were a teacher for so long, an advocate for children who really, really need an advocate, and for parents who have no idea. Hearing parents of deaf children, how could they possibly know? And thank you. Do you have advice for people?
Yeah. So one bit of advice is don't assume that you're the one in control of your book. The book is in control of you. The book will take on a life of its own. You know, so whatever you think in the beginning of the process, it's naive, because the more you do it, the more you will learn and grow, and the book changes and transforms and morphs. And with every year, the book is a different animal. And pretty soon, the writer is a different animal too. It's owned by the book. It's hard to explain this, but when I hear people who are in the early stages talking about what their manuscript will be, I feel like telling them this somehow. That's one thing. And one of the best things I did after I had been writing for a few years, I always have a notebook next to me, and while I'm watching an event, a class, a writing group, anything, your group, Allison, online, I'm always taking notes. It's hard because I can't look down at the paper. I have to read the captions, but I've got very good at it. And the trouble is that I had tons of notebooks, and each one had a random event jotted down in it, notes from the event. So I ordered 10 books from Office Depot, 10 notebooks and blank notebooks, and I labeled each one of them for a different purpose: writing group, promotion, book notes, etc. And it helped tremendously. So I would just pull the one that was applicable, and then I could also find the appropriate notes when I needed them. Try to maintain balance in your life. Try to not let the book take over. Keep that balance, because the book may take years and years, and it may not go as you planned, and you don't want to be missing important events in your life that you'll never get back, or moments with loved ones. Maintain balance. A big one I want to say is, people were talking here about trauma and writing memoir, writing difficult things. For me, my experience was that writing about something traumatic and difficult can totally transform your relationship to it. So, and then when you write, you edit again and again and again, fine tune it, and many, many times polish it. And by the time you've finished, you don't feel the same about that experience in your life, even remotely, anymore. You've taken ownership of it. So for that reason alone, there's nothing like writing. There's just nothing like it. And one other thing is, when you're in a writing group, read chronologically. I'm telling you all the things that I wish I had done, but read your book chronologically to the group, because if you don't, then you keep forgetting which part you shared and It's very hard if you're jumping around. It's hard for the other members of the group to follow the story. And it's also hard for you as an author to remember exactly which segment you shared. Interview your editors really carefully. If you get a bad editor and pay them a lot, it can be such a bad experience that then you don't want to hire editors again. I mean, interview them really carefully. And last of all, if something blocks you and makes you feel like giving up the whole thing, the whole project, think about how you'll feel if you never do it. If you never write the book, will it leave you alone or will it haunt you? Will it always be there in your head, bothering you, that that was something you wanted to share with the world, that you felt had value for other people, and you didn't do it? And I hope you do it.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I just love you so much. I'm so happy that we met and that you're here and that we can all celebrate you. I'm really happy. I know I'm choking, but I am really. I just am emotional. Okay, surprise guest, Allison Hong Merrill. I'm coming for you, girl. Here we go. 99 fire hoops. Can you please tell us, first of all, award-winning, people, award-winning, and more to come. But Allison, welcome. Tell us about your book.
Thank you so much for the privilege of sharing my story with you. So my debut memoir is titled 99 Fire Hoops. It came out last year in September, and it's about the power of choice, illustrated by my experience as a Taiwanese immigrant bride, disowned by my father, abandoned by my American husband, and inarticulate in English. But the character Allison in the story was determined to create her own destiny. So writing this memoir was very challenging for me because I have a reading disorder, and so I don't read well. And so I don't read well, so I don't write well. So it was very, very difficult for me to write this book, but it's now here. And my advice for any creative nonfiction writers is to do an imaginary interview with the characters in your story, because that way, well, when I say imaginary interview, it means you don't have to actually call the people. Say, if you're writing about your family, you don't actually have to call the family members that you're writing about, call them or, and ask them for permission for an interview because you're writing the story that concerned them or involved them, or, sharing your shared experience with the family members. But what I mean is that you do an imaginary interview, saying, like you're sitting in a very comfortable living room or in the coffee shop or wherever, and you're having this conversation with all the questions you have for this character in your story. And then you just, of course, because this is imaginary, so that person you're writing about is not going to be there physically with you. So you will have to imagine the answers that this person is going to tell you, to answer your questions. And that is a strategy I use to put myself in that character's shoes, to understand the motive and the intention of this character's behaviors. And so that way I will develop more compassion and more understanding toward this character, so that when I write about this character in my story, I will not be as judgmental or to inject my personal feelings that might be negative toward this person, even though I might still feel bitter about what happened between this character and me in real life, but having that imaginary interview helped me to be a little bit more objective when I write about that character. So that's my advice. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I love that piece of advice. And I've never heard that particularly before, especially related to memoir, because we all think, well, that person exists. But you know what? It's not an audit of your life. No one's going to come and say, did they actually say that? It's not a reported piece. And you are developing these characters because the reader is going to experience this as almost as a novel about you. And it's such good advice. Thank you. I'm so glad this is the first time we're meeting. So hello. I love it. Listen, there are a lot of chat. There's a lot of chat activity. Let me reiterate, if you submitted your information and I did not share it, it will be shared. Everyone who submitted their info and who's here tonight, if your book was available for order and was published in 2022, you're here. Awesome. And also guest appearances by Allison Hong Merrill and Rachel Zemak. Now, if your book is coming in 2023, I'm coming for you. Really, really. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited that we're going to be coordinating reading lists and book lists and Amazon and Bookshop. Sometimes we get questions about, hey, can I pitch excerpts from my book that is not published yet and I don't have an agent yet? And the answer is, please don't. Please don't do that, because you can write all around the content that's in your book, but your publisher will advise you hold back excerpts of what's in the actual book so it could fuel the sales once your book is actually available. Now, if you're looking for an agent, or your agent is looking for a publisher for you, that's not the time to take your chapter 2 and put it on your website, because you don't entice someone to buy something when you also give it to them for free first. When you go to a restaurant, they don't say, come on, have an entree, and then you can buy an entree. No, you've eaten already. You're good. So you've got to think about, like, give them a little taste of what you got. And Debbie, your example is exactly what I'm talking about. You're giving them a little bit of you, but also you're giving them content and advice and counsel and insight, because you're a generous advisor and a leading voice on this topic, which all of you are. Even if you're a memoirist, even when you're a memoirist, you are a leading voice for the themes that you write about, whatever they are. So own it. I believe in you, and everyone here does. So yes. Okay, well, I think it's going to be time to wrap up. Listen, in 2 weeks, we have another compassionate critique session. So if you are looking to work on or polish anything, you can bring a problem, a priority, a page. If you're looking for an agent or a title for your book, or where should I pitch an article, this is the time to do it. We break into groups, we dig down, and we support each other. You get real-time feedback, and you learn from hearing other people get feedback. You don't even have to bring anything. I mean, I'm the host, so I'm doing work while we're doing it, but I learned just from being in the room, and it's helpful to me. So I love this. And then In November, we have a magnificent brand building copywriter and marketer coming to talk about how to market yourself and really what words help connect you with your reader or potential reader. And she has got a formula that works. And yep, and then we'll keep going. If you have an idea for a topic for one of these webinars, or if you're like, you know what, I really wish, we could get some quality time with fill in the blank writer, I don't mind asking them. Courtney Mom said yes over a DM. So that was freaking awesome. Give me your wish list. I will solicit their input and advice and their live appearances because writers love writers, and that's what we're doing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're going to keep going, especially if you're new in 23. We're coming for you too. And see you in 2 weeks.